So we'll begin with this first question right here. Dear Rabbi, I am often tempted to buy a lottery ticket, especially when the sum is as big as it is this week. But I feel guilty that perhaps it's not the right thing to do. Are Jews allowed to buy lottery tickets, or is gambling something that's discouraged? So it's a good question. It's a halachic question. And I know that this week, the Powerball, I don't know, what was this enormous sum of what, $750 million, and the Mega Million also some $550 million. Everyone was buying lottery tickets. And I think that the winner for the Powerball wants to be someone from Maryland, right? Today. I think so. But it is indeed tempting that when you see sums like that, you want to buy a lottery ticket. So there are multiple opinions. First, you have the Sephardic opinion, which is really the opinion of most Sephardic authorities. They say that no, it's strictly forbidden to buy a lottery ticket for multiple reasons. Number one, it's a form of stealing. That's the strictest opinion. Think about this. It's a form of stealing. Why is it a form of stealing? Because no one gives of their money if they just out of their own will to someone else. I mean, if it's charity, it's charity. But if I put down money for someone to take without me benefiting from that, it's not something usually I want to do. Now, that's the case when you buy a lottery ticket. It's people putting down their money and then you taking that money away from them if you win, right? Without them really getting anything in return. So it's a form of stealing because you're stealing their money when they really don't want to give it to you. They're forced to give it to you hoping that they win the lottery. But if they don't win the lottery, they gave something against their will. So it's a form of stealing. It's a type of stealing according to the strictest opinion. Another opinion says that it's gambling. And gambling is indeed not looked upon favorably in the Torah. And there are multiple reasons for that. First, because the gambler is really the one job. Gambling is the one job in which you don't contribute to society anything, right? If you sweep the streets, you're contributing to society. If you're a doctor, you're contributing to society. If you sew people's clothes, you're contributing to society. If you're gambling, what are you contributing? I don't know. Maybe you're contributing to casinos. Casinos thing, good. I don't know. And that's why really there's a halakha that says that gamblers should not be taken as witnesses for any type of court case or any type of court document, because they can't be trusted. People that only take, that really don't give anything to society, are not people that can be trusted. So yeah, you have yet another reason why buying the lottery or any other form of gambling is not allowed. But there are opinions that do allow buying. Now, by the way, to continue in to speak about the opinions that said it's forbidden, some speak about the danger that there is in gambling. That gambling can become an addiction. It starts small, but eventually it goes big until you lose everything. I know people who had gambling addictions. And by the way, apparently gambling addictions, strongest of all addictions, stronger than alcohol addictions, or stronger than drug addiction, stronger than sex addiction. It's the biggest addiction, the strongest addiction out there. So it could give an opening to those with that, you could call it genetic disposition or weak heart, however you want, to eventually fall in that trap. How realistic is that? I don't know. I think it depends on the person. But that's yet another reason to forbid it, according to those opinions. You do have opinions that allow you buying a lottery ticket. Now, why is that? They say that that's because, again, there's nothing wrong, especially if you only buy one ticket. And there's really nothing wrong. You're not stealing really. That you can easily disprove that claim. You're not falling into any gambling addiction if you can control yourself and not buy more. Now, everyone agrees, though, all those that permit buying a lottery ticket say that you should only buy one ticket. Can't buy more than one ticket. Why is that? Because buying more than one ticket will be showing your disbelief in God's goodness to you. If God wants you to win, he'll make you win with that one ticket that you bought. If you're buying more than one ticket, you're saying to God, I don't really believe in you too much. So let me increase my chances by buying more tickets. But again, that's a type of disbelief in God. And therefore, one should only buy one ticket, because if God will want you to buy it, then I like what you wrote, Linda. If God wants you to win it, then you'll win it with just one ticket. Anyway, that's to relate to what Halacha Judaism has to say about buying lottery tickets. By the way, we expect you that if you do win the lottery, you have to give 10%, at least 10%. So don't forget CBT when you win the lottery with that one ticket, okay? All
But
right.
why, we're not supposed to buy lottery tickets.
No, one ticket. Again, some opinions allow buying lottery tickets, but just one. Just
But
one.
did they have lottery tickets when they wrote the halacha?
Absolutely. Today it's still written. So today you have lottery ticket. Yeah, today you have halachic authorities too that can rule on this. Okay, I want to go to Sue's question. What you were speaking about, I'm only saying it's your question because you mentioned it out loud, Sue. So the question is as follows, and that is, can you please talk about Sheva Brachot, the 7 blessings that are recited, not just at a wedding under the chuppah, but also, like you just pointed out, 7 days during the 7 meals of the 7 days after the chuppah, after a bride and a groom are married. A friend of mine spoke about it, and I know very little about it. Okay, so the 7 blessings that are recited under the chuppah, 7 blessings that are recited for each and every meal that the bride and the groom have for 7 days also after the chuppah as mentioned. 7 blessings, let's just speak about the origins of those blessings first. The 7 blessings really originate in the times of the Mishnah. So they are at least 2,000 years old. Now, they were composed by the Mishnaic sages to celebrate the wedding, the marriage, or even more so, the fusion of the 2 souls of the bride and of the groom. They speak not just of that marriage, but they also speak about how those 7 blessings speak about how really God has created that fusion of those 2 souls at the beginning of times. And when 2 people get married, it's them finding one another, finding their other half, as people say these days. The blessings also speak about how the marriage that is being performed is really a vote for the future. Think about this. When the bride and the groom get married and they intend then to have children, they vote for a future to their personal lineage, but also to the Jewish nation in general. Thanks to them being married and having children, the Jewish future is guaranteed. So the blessings also speak about that vote for the future, how the barren woman is now experiencing a rebirth. What people may have, how people may have categorized the Jewish people as barren, but through marriages, then these barren women are experiencing that rebirth. The 7 blessings also speak about how God enters their covenant, and how if they allow it to be, then God comes in and becomes a third partner for the husband and the wife. And, as long as they allow God in their behavior, in the comportment with one another, in their household, in the values that they have in their home, then God will join their hands and also partner with them, being that third partner to the husband and to the wife. So those blessings speak a little bit about that. Now, the reason we have 7 blessings, in fact, the number 7 is quite a dominant number in the chuppah ceremony and in marriage in general. That's because the number 7 symbolizes completion. And again, we want to allude to the fact that now these souls are completing the fusion, as we spoke about, and therefore we have the number 7. Now that's why they celebrate also after the wedding for 7 days, and each time they celebrate with those 7 blessings. Now, Kabbalistically, there's another significance to the number 7. As you may know, there are 7 emotional attributes, 7 what's called sephirot. And when a husband and a wife get married, then they are committing to infusing that union, that love that they have, into the 7 emotions, that life consists of, so that whatever emotion they will experience throughout their marriage, those emotions will be infused with godliness. Those emotions that, again, are expressed by the 7 Sefirot will be infused with godliness. So that's really the deeper reason why we have 7 blessings according to Kabbalah. But again, for each of the 7 days again, which symbolizes the completion of their fusion, we celebrate them by saying the Sheva Brachot, the 7 blessings at the meals that we have for the bride and the groom. So that's really the idea behind the Sheva Brachot.
Rabbi, I have a question. So I remember when we had my son's bar mitzvah, we did Sheva Brachot. I know it's not the same thing, but we did 7 people read the same brachot. Is that a customary thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Those are the Sheva Brachot we're speaking about, right?
Well, yeah. No, but it wasn't a wedding. It was Aaron's bar mitzvah. So.
Oh, at his bar mitzvah. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. At his bar mitzvah.
No. Oh. We did it at Aaron's bar mitzvah. So I think it was the same Sheva Brachot. We gave it.
I don't know. I haven't heard of that custom, but I will tell you that, and you have 7 aliyahs. At the party.
At the party.
Prominent at bar mitzvahs, yeah.
I know at the party we had 7 different people read 7 different brachot.
Okay.
I have it on video. You can see it. I'm kidding.
I haven't heard of that custom, but it could be that it's a custom. I mean, the Sheva Brachot that we're speaking about mentioned Chatan and Kala, the bride and the groom.
I know, but
I don't believe it's for bar mitzvahs, but it could be.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, sure. Okay, next question. So, by the way, this is the last question for this week. That's why I encourage you to continue sending questions, but this is a good one. So, dear Rabbi, can you explain my children to me? I have dedicated my life to looking after their every need. But if I ask one of them to get me a glass of water, they moan and groan. Why are parents so much more devoted to their children than children are devoted to their parents? It's a great question, and it's true. It's a fact of life. Parents are so much more devoted to their children than children are devoted to their parents, as you put it. I think that we inherited that from Adam and Eve. We inherit a lot of things. We speak about nature being, education being influenced by nature or nurture. That's one of the things that is influenced by nature. Because if you think about this, Adam and Eve didn't have parents. They had their devotion to their children, but they didn't have to devote themselves to parents because they didn't have parents. And that mode was then genetically given over to their children. Children who then became devoted to their children, but not devoted to parents. But it's not their fault again, because Adam and Eve didn't have parents. I wonder if they even had an umbilical cord. I wonder if they even had a belly button, right? At Dr. Pello's, the belly button formed because of the umbilical cord. So if they didn't have an umbilical cord, maybe they didn't even have a belly button. They didn't have any connection to parents. Because they didn't have any connection to parents, so naturally that's the trait that they inherited to their children. Children who then became devoted to their children as they were, but not devoted to parents as they were because they didn't have parents. Now, I really believe that's the reason. Now, I want to make an additional point here, and that comes to emphasize, this idea at least, comes to emphasize the importance of not just relying on nature, but also implementing the nurture aspect of education. Because if we didn't inherit that, it does not mean that we shouldn't teach our children to respect their parents and to indeed devote themselves to their parents. Too often, we spoil our children and we allow them to walk all over us. And it's time for parents to be parents. I think especially in our generation, that I think that if you would ask, try this, if you would ask children of any family, who are the most important people in their household? You don't have to limit that question to children. Ask parents that. I've tried this before. Very often, you'll get the answer that the children, of course, are the most important. Well, I think that's a travesty. Why? Because the parents are the foundation of every household. The parents set the tone. The parents teach values. The parents are creating the next generation and the way the next generation will be like. And if the children are the most important, then the children set the tone. then the children create the next future. And I wouldn't trust children with education. I mean, maybe when they grow up, I would, but not with education, not values. I think it's the parents who need to solidify themselves as the most important part of their family, as the people who are looked up to, so that they can then influence the next generation and shape its destiny in the best way possible. Now, I'm saying this because I think that if you feel that your children are not devoting themselves to you, then it's time to do some parenting. It's time to then nurture, not just rely on nature, to nurture them with those values. And it's something that I think is crucially important in our day and age, in which the child has taken the center stage of every household instead of the parent himself or herself. And sometimes it's our fault. It's simply because we give into our children too much and there's not too much discipline. Sometimes for other reasons, but it's time for the parent to conquer that center stage once more and nurture their children with as much love, but also with as much education towards respect as possible. That is, by the way, one of the great ideas of the Torah itself, because the Torah doesn't have a commandment that children should love their parents. Doesn't. But does have a commandment that children should respect their parents. Why? Because that love might not exist. Again, it's a nature thing. But they can certainly teach respect. And if they are disrespected, then parents should stand up for themselves and say, excuse me, you might not love me as much as I love you, but you ought to respect me. That this is a two-way street. Might not have been like that with Adam and Eve because they didn't have parents. So naturally, that's not your inclination, but it still needs to be. That's what the Torah demands of you. And I think that really will shape a better future for our society altogether when those parents will eventually take the center stage of their household. And I'll conclude with a story that I may have shared in the past, but it's a story about one of the great rabbis. I think it was Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, who was a great halachic authority, but it could have been someone else. Not so sure, but he was once traveling, flying on a plane from one place to another. And next to him sat a big professor. And they both traveled with their students. Rabbi Feinstein had his students on the plane, and so did this professor. Rabbi Feinstein's students would come to Rabbi Feinstein and ask him every few minutes, can we help you? Do you need a cup of water? What can we do for you? And the professor's students fell asleep in the back. Didn't bother asking the professor if he needed anything. So at one point, the professor asked Rabbi Feinstein, how could it be? We both have students here on this plane. We both looked up to. My students don't respect me, at least not as close as your students respect you. How do you explain that? And Rabbi Feinstein said to him, well, professor, I believe that you are of the theory that human beings come from apes, Darwin theory. And I am the theory that we come from God. We were created by God. And that explains why my students respect me more than your students respect you. Because the further removed you are from that initial ape, the more you are a human being. Now you are closer to that ape than they are. They see themselves more of human beings than you are. You're closer to that ape. And therefore, they don't show their respect. For us, the further removed we are from God, the less godly we are. I'm closer to God than they are. And therefore, they show respect towards the godly being that I am. But I'm telling the story because it's true what Rabbi Feinstein said, that it is our duty to carry that image of God into every single household, into the lives of our children. And we have to be those representatives of God. And it's not something that they'll receive naturally, again, because Adam and Eve didn't have parents, but it's something that we ought to teach them, that there's a God that they are representing, that the parents, that we as parents are representing, and that there's a God that fills the values of this home. And it's that respect that they owe that God, and that love that they owe that God, and that devotion, word that you use, that devotion that they owe that God, that must take the center stage.